The Prime Minister decides that he has to be surrounded by advisors who give him shoddy advice, I think that the reality of that will end in the Prime Minister having to be making a decision about his future at some point soon.
So you're suggesting if the Prime Minister doesn't sack Morgan McSweeney, he will have to go?
Look, I don't want to be telling the PM who he's entitled to have as an advisor.
But that's who we're talking about here, isn't it? Just so that our listeners are clear, really.
Look, I've got to be honest with you. I think if McSweeney continues in number 10 Downing Street, I think the PM is up against it in a way that he doesn't need to be.
As you heard just now in the news, Labour's Communities Secretary Steve Reid gave Times Radio a defence of the Prime Minister an hour ago. He told us it was rational to appoint Peter Mandelson as ambassador to Washington, given what Sir Keir Starmer knew at the time. We now know that the Prime Minister was aware that Mandelson had an ongoing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and aware that it was strong enough for Mandelson to stay at Epstein's townhouse while the financier was in prison. We can hear from Paula Barker. She's a Labour MP for Liverpool Wavertree. She's on the Common Standards Committee, and she gave us an insight into the current mood within the Parliamentary Labour Party.
There is a real sadness, disappointment, anger and hurt. Quite frankly, we have to do better. Our country deserves better and we must do better. And as I said, it will have to always be, and it must be, country before party.
Well, Karl Turner is the MP for Kingston upon Hull East and has known Keir Starmer since they both became MPs in 2010. He's been critical recently of some government policy. He joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Kate.
Can you give us an indication, Karl, and we heard there from Paula Barker about the way that some MPs feel. What is the mood like in the parliamentary party at the moment?
I think it's fairly dire, I have to say. I think the mood yesterday was the angriest I think I've ever seen Labour MPs in the 16 years that I've been in Parliament. I think the anger is not towards Keir Starmer. I think it's towards Keir Starmer's advisors. I think that is really what's happening. I was texting the PM last night as a result of people texting me, asking me to text him to give him their support.
Oh, I see. So you were getting people, so worried that it seemed to be going in the direction that the Prime Minister might actually have to step aside, looking to bolster him to ensure he didn't do that.
I had members texting me saying they don't have his number. Would I mind contacting the PM, asking if they could have his number and offering the support to him? And I was forwarding messages to him last night, but people are very angry. I'm not suggesting there's universal support for the PM, but there is great anger, and it's not towards the Prime Minister, it's towards the Prime Minister's advisors. That's the truth of what I'm picking up.
Can I ask you, Karl, before we get on to that point that you've just made there, what did the PM say in reply?
He thanked me, and he thanked, I suspect he thanked those who was then messaging him, because I was passing on his number to members who were asking for it.
Oh, I see. So you were asking permission for that. So you do have a sense of the place that he's in right now, because he's currently heading off to go and do a speech, which will be an incredible moment for him.
Look, I mean, it will be. I mean, look, we can't pretend that this is not a crisis situation. I think it is. I think Keir Starmer's got a decision to make today. My advice to the Prime Minister, I have to tell you, is get rid of those advisors who, frankly, have given terrible advice to him over these weeks and months. I don't think it's a one-off. I think the advice has been fairly shoddy on more than one occasion, actually. And I think the PM needs to deal with that and make a decision. If the Prime Minister decides that he has to be surrounded by advisors who give him shoddy advice, I think that the reality of that will end in the Prime Minister having to be making a decision about his future at some point soon.
So you're suggesting if the Prime Minister doesn't sack Morgan McSweeney, he will have to go?
Look, I don't want to be telling the PM who he's entitled to have as an advisor.
But that's who we're talking about here, isn't it? Just so that our listeners are clear, really.
Look, I've got to be honest with you. I think if McSweeney continues in number 10 Downing Street, I think the PM is up against it in a way that he doesn't need to be.
Is there an alternative leader for your party that you see? I mean, many people are looking to Angela Rayner, who appeared last night to step in the Commons. She cancelled another event to be there to suggest a workaround so the government didn't face embarrassment. Is she the solution here?
Well, let me tell you what was happening yesterday. I was texting Angie Rayner quite early in the day, saying to her that this motion was not likely to win the support of the PLP in enough numbers to get it through, which is shocking when we have such a massive majority in Parliament. And Angie took over, frankly. That's what happened. I'm not going to pretend it's not true. She did. Without Angie Rayner yesterday, and in fact, Alan Campbell, the leader of the House, we'd have been in a worse state than we're in now. That's who sorted it out. That's the truth.
Why was she forced to step in that way? Why is it, do you think, that the Prime Minister was unable to see that his plan wouldn't work and then try and fix it?
Well, I don't know, Kate. The reality was there'd have been a discussion the night previous or even the day previous. The Chief Whip and the PM and the PM's advisors would have decided what the motion was going to be. I think anybody who has got any sense would have known that the Intelligence and Security Committee ought to have been a consideration. I wouldn't have been able to support the motion yesterday. I didn't make that clear to Whips. I didn't need to. What I needed to do is get to Angie Rayner because I knew she could sort it. I was hoping, not praying, but hoping she and Alan Campbell were around because I knew those were the people who'd be able to fix what was going on yesterday, and that's what happened.
It sounds like, Karl, essentially what you're saying is there is a workaround now in Parliament. When things go wrong in the Labour Party, you can't go to number 10. You're going to the alternative. There is an alternative power base.
Okay, there is a massive over-reliance on advisors, and I'm afraid there is a fear from some in the PLP of a certain individual who is surrounding the PM. There is a fear that if we speak out, we're briefed against. Members have had it time and again. Cabinet members have been savaged and leaked and briefed against. If you have the audacity of deciding that a policy is not up to much, there's briefings against those individuals.
And Karl, you're suggesting, I know you don't want to be explicit, but you're suggesting that's coming from Morgan McSweeney. I suppose my question to you would be, the Prime Minister is more powerful. You know, he has the judgment, the ability, the opportunity to stop that from happening. He's not controlled by Morgan McSweeney. Do you have questions about his judgment at all in any of this?
Of course I do. Look, I've not met Morgan McSweeney. I wouldn't know Morgan if I walked into him in Portcullis House. He wouldn't know me as far as I can make of it.
I suspect he would.
You will do now.
But I tell you this. I've never known it in the 16 years I've been in there. MPs have been briefed against. Cabinet members are savagely briefed against. I'm afraid to say there's been an over-reliance on bad advice by the PM. Advisors advise, ministers decide, and that includes the PM. If the Prime Minister continues to be advised badly, I'm afraid the answer is clear to most of us to see. I think the reality of Mandelson is this. I think Mandelson has created a situation whereby others have been put into the frame where they ought not to have been. I think he's got a close relationship with people like Steve Reid, who you've had on earlier this morning. He's got a close relationship with people like Peter Kyle. I think to an extent, possibly a lesser extent, West Streeting. I think all of those people, as a result of what's been happening, are going to be implicated to a degree. And I think the Prime Minister now needs to take control. I think he needs to say he's in charge. He needs to decide what we want to do in terms of policy going forward. And members of Parliament need to be trusted and respected and not marched up hills and back down them. I think there's an opportunity for Keir to save it. I think if he carries on in the way that we've been going, I'm afraid the writing's fairly clear.
Karl Turner, MP for Kingston upon Hull East. Thank you very much for giving us your time this morning.
Thank you.
Well, listening to that was the Times political editor, Stephen Swinford. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
That's a pretty stark reality there for Keir Starmer.
That was a pretty punchy interview. Karl Turner was effectively giving the Prime Minister an ultimatum there. He was saying, if you don't sack Morgan McSweeney, your Chief of Staff, you will be up against the wall, I think that's how he put it, i.e. your own future will be in doubt. And that isn't, Karl Turner's not alone in that. There are a lot of backbenchers that are saying that. I think, as you were suggesting earlier, Kate, there was a question of, is this actually Morgan McSweeney's fault, or is there a more fundamental judgment issue with the Prime Minister appointing someone that he didn't actually even like in Lord Mandelson, wasn't close to, but deciding nonetheless to make him his man in Washington? And that's the kind of bigger picture here. So yes, in these situations, MPs always go for the advisors. They go for the kind of people in the room. It would happen under Theresa May, it happened under Boris Johnson. They go for those around the principal, but at some point they come for the principal themselves because the decisions don't improve. And that is a pattern that we're seeing at the moment.
Stig earlier spoke to Steve Reid. He was mentioned there by Karl Turner in that interview. Steve Reid was clearly, more frustrated, let's say, than I've ever seen him in an interview. He's usually a very kind of calm performer. You can tell that there is something going on at the heart of government. Steve Reid is very, very close to Morgan McSweeney, also been close to others, very senior figures in the past in the party. What does this say about the Prime Minister's state of mind? He's giving a speech today. What can he do? What will he do to try and get out of this?
I think he's going to continue with his current strategy, which is to throw Mandelson under a bus in every way humanly possible. He is using all the power of his office, all the power of the state to bury Mandelson. He is saying at the dispatch box, he's a liar, he lied to me, he misled me, he referred some material to the police, he has launched an inquiry. He's using all of the arms of power and bringing them to bear against Lord Mandelson with one reason. He is now trying to draw as much distance as humanly possible between him and Mandelson because he knows how dire the threat is. But the problem for him is that when you look at it, when you stand back from it, ultimately, he appointed a man who was friends with a paedophile as Britain's advisor in Washington, and he was aware that he had continued to be friends with a paedophile. This 2-page Cabinet Office due diligence document, which he was given at the time of the appointment, just before it, is clear on it. It basically was described to me as a cut and paste Google exercise. It's 2 pages, it's newspaper cuttings that were already out there, highlighting their friendship, highlighting the fact that Lord Mandelson stayed at the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein's apartment in Manhattan while he was serving time in jail. I mean, if that isn't red flags and warning signs, I don't know what is. Now, the Prime Minister's argument is he didn't know the depth and the extent of it, but it is almost an indefensible position because it was so clearly such a bad judgment call. And the problem the Prime Minister's got is that Labour MPs are absolutely furious about it.
Yeah, well, we'll watch that speech carefully. And Steve, it's fantastic reporting today. It has informed this programme this morning and the way, our direction of travel that we have taken. So it's very, very worth a read, thetimes.com or in the paper this morning. Steve Swinford, at the Times political editor, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.